What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Before we start, we did pick the winners for the Monster Hunter Switch giveaway, where we gave away 2 copies of Monster Hunter on the Switch. So congratulations to both Timothy and Kathy. Both of those games are now on their way to you. So congratulations to them. And I was trying to figure out what we do for our next giveaway as we roll towards 150,000 subscribers. And there are so many games coming out in the fall that I figure whoever wins will just be able to pick the game they want, since there are just so many. I was looking at all the different, Tomb Raider's out this week. We just had SpiderMan, and then of course we have a whole bunch of other stuff. I mean, Dragon Quest 11 just came out, and then we're rolling towards things like Mario Party, Pokemon, Smash, Red Dead Redemption, Call of Duty, Battlefield. The list just goes on. There's just a lot of stuff coming out. I'm even looking at that Mega Man 11 amiibo bundle, even if I can get it. So there's just a lot of stuff coming out. I figure when we get there, we'll do a drawing for it, and then the winner can just say, hey, I want Spider-Man, I want Red Dead, this is the game I want, and then we'll just send it out. I guess the fall game, or the fall game giveaway, I guess is what we could call it. But that is now active. The link's down below if you want to just go ahead and enter for a chance to win a game of your choice that's out or coming out, I guess, as you can do a pre-order on it for you. Now today we have to get into EA because, oh, EA, they just cannot stop, can they? So EA is actually being investigated now for their loot boxes in Belgium. We're going to go over all that. And then we also talk about TGS a bit, because it seems like Sega might have some new announcements, some Sega Ages announcements for the Nintendo Switch that we kind of wanted to talk and speculate on a little bit, because I think it might be a pretty cool announcement there. First, though, let's get into some of the news, starting with Gone Home. That's actually out on the Nintendo Switch. People were playing through it, and they kind of noticed something. And that is that Nintendo appears to be going even a little further with indie developers and maybe filling in some of the small cracks in their games, which in Gone Home, actually in the 90s, they kind of filled the place with like Super Nintendo games, but they were like made up Super Nintendo games. But Nintendo appears to be letting them use their actual games. So you can find like Donkey Kong Country, you can find Super Mario Kart, and it's kind of neat to see that. It really just makes you really realize just how much Nintendo is trying to work with indie developers for little touches of detail like this. It's also possible the developers who are Gone Home maybe went to Nintendo and said, hey, we usually put these Super Nintendo games in there to kind of build atmosphere. It'd be really cool if maybe we could actually use Donkey Kong Country or another one of your standard Super Nintendo games that we can put in there, and it'll just help complete the atmosphere. It really seems like Nintendo is going the extra mile for these indie developers, and that's just the latest example of it. Also, do you remember The Last Remnant was removed from storefronts? I think in the US, in North America, it was September 4th. It might have been different other places based on time zones and stuff. They did remove The Last Remnant from storefronts, so you can't really buy it anymore. Of course, if you get a used copy on the 360, you can play it there and everything, or I think if you already had it downloaded on Steam, I believe you can still download it and play it and everything. I have it in my Steam library, so I'll double check that. But I guess it doesn't matter as much now, since it appears that Square is actually remastering this game and they're moving it to Unreal Engine, which was very interesting to see. They're going to move it to Unreal Engine 4, and it's going to be fully remastered, and it's coming out December 6th in Japan, but no word outside of Japan currently, so I have a feeling they'll move it to the West maybe next year. It was just interesting to see this, because I remember playing this on my 360, and I thought it was okay. I know the frame rate had a hard time at that point on the 360. It was a little better on PC, I guess, but there were still bugs and everything. To have them move the entire game to Unreal Engine 4, remaster it, and then bring it out on the PS4 currently is the only system we've seen it on, is very interesting that they even would bring that game back. But, I mean, we're seeing all types of games from back in the day show up. We just talked about Crystal Chronicles yesterday, and here we are now talking about The Last Remnant. We saw Langrister, Grandia. There's just a lot of stuff showing back up. Oh, and I guess as we're rolling into TGS, we are getting other games kind of just announced with release dates. We now know when the Catherine Full Body Edition is coming out. Of course, that's coming out for PS4 and Vita. It's coming out February 14th, currently in Japan. No word as a Western release date yet, but this was actually announced in Famitsu, so if you missed Catherine on the PS3 or the 360 and you wanted to pick it up, just know you in February, midway through February, you'll be able to get it there in Japan, and we'll kind of keep an eye out for when it is going to leave Japan, get localized, come west and everything, and we'll keep an eye on that. So with some of the quick news out of the way, let's jump into some of the bigger stuff. We're going to start with EA right away, because this is just crazy. So it does appear that EA is actually going to be fighting against the Belgian Gaming Commission when it comes to loot boxes. I did not expect this, because I didn't think Belgium would be a battleground that EA would want to really fight for. Like, I don't know how much money they get from Belgium for their FIFA 18 and then eventually FIFA 19, but it seems like it's enough for them to, I guess, actively fight against it in court. So if you don't know, back in April, Belgium actually just classified loot boxes as gambling straight up, and you just need to remove them. So 2K, Take-Two, we had Activision, Blizzard, Valve. They removed their loot boxes from games like Counter-Strike and games like Overwatch and 2K. You remember we actually talked about how 2K and then put out a whole blog post asking people to contact their government if you want to have in-game currency with loot boxes, so I guess you don't have to grind as much, or maybe you're just mad about loot boxes coming out. Well, it looks like EA is mad about this because they're willing to go to court over it. In fact, it does appear at this time that they are going to be coming under a criminal investigation, because I told you guys some of the penalties and consequences that come from this include things like 800,000 euros, which probably isn't a big deal, although it can be doubled because minors are technically involved with their E-rated FIFA 18 and soon to be FIFA 19, so that would go up, I guess, to 1.6 million euros, which is a bit kind of a drop in the bucket to EA. Let's be real here. With the amount of money they make, which is like $800 million a year just on microtransactions, they would probably be more than happy to just pay that penalty and move along. But the idea of this is to keep that out of these games, have games of chance in there. So they also attach 5 years imprisonment. Again, can be doubled with minors, so I guess 10 years. I don't know how that works. If you are a legal expert, I'm very curious how that would work, and let me know in the comments when it comes to a big corporation with potential prison sentence when it comes to that. Does, like, Andrew Wilson walk down the hallway and just kind of tap someone on the shoulder and say, You're up, you're going to jail? I don't know. You feel like you go after the guy at the top who's calling the shots, Andrew Wilson, who has actively said because a player knows how many things they're getting, it's not gambling, whereas at the gaming commission they say, no, you don't know what you're getting, it's a game of chance, it's gambling. So they are going to be going back and forth. It sounds like this is going to court, and it sounds like, well, the gaming commission is going to prosecute, and it's going to turn into a legal battle. And it's going to be interesting to see the way this goes, because on one hand, you have EA, who is going to attempt to prove that loot boxes are not inherently gambling when it comes down to it. And then, of course, the Gaming Commission is going to push and try to put a shadow of doubt that this is gambling. So if EA wins, then I assume all the other companies are just dropping their loot boxes back in. But if the Belgian Gaming Commission wins, that kind of sets a bit of a precedent, doesn't it? I'm curious if then other places will look at it and say, yeah, maybe that is the case. It was proven in a court of law, so maybe we should look at these loot boxes. Either way, it seems like it's more work than it should be worth for EA. I feel like EA should just back off and move along, because they're going to make a lot of money anyway. I just told you guys they sold 24 million copies of FIFA in the first place, so what are they doing? That's so much money just to make from the sale of the product. Probably close to $1 billion just from selling the thing. And that's every year, because the game doesn't even change that much anyway. And they, sell it every year. I don't know. This is so weird for EA to go this far over just like a single territory. Let me know what you guys think about this situation. Is this dangerous for EA to even do this? Because they could set a precedent unknowingly or inadvertently against them by losing in the court of law. Let me know what you guys think about this, and what would FIFA look like without those loot boxes. I guess it would look like FIFA 2005, FIFA 2006, because there were a lot of sports games before loot boxes showed up. So it's not like they haven't existed without them. It's just now it's like the hot craze for EA to make a ton of extra money on top of the $1 billion from game sales. Next up, let's talk a bit about Fortnite on the Switch, as they did have a new patch or a new version that came out, and it appears that it has disabled the video capture functionality on the Switch. And people were unsure as to why. A lot of people were kind of theorizing that it probably had to do with the performance on the Switch, and removing that function would actually help with it. And it does appear that Epic is kind of backing up that claim. And as you're seeing in their words, that actually will eliminate a high rate of out-of-memory related crashes. And by removing that video capture will actually save a significant amount of RAM, while also having a positive effect on overall performance across the board. So this is interesting in the fact that the video capture can affect something like a Fortnite as much. We do see some games where I guess the developers just don't opt in, and I'm curious if it's really that big of a difference between being able to capture video and not capture video. They did talk about how they could make it optional, like in the menus, you can go in and I guess check a little box, and all of a sudden maybe your performance takes a bit of a hit, but you can record video. I'm sure there are some people who would like to be able to record video, but it does seem like they're running into issues with the RAM, like really jamming Fortnite onto the Switch. And I guess they were just having issues integrating that video capture in there for the Switch. I guess that's why it's optional, just in case you don't want to allocate RAM to that. But hey, I guess it's a feature people want, so making it optional and you don't really mind losing some of your frame rate, I mean, I guess it's at least an option. You can just turn it off if you're not planning on capturing video. Next up, let's talk a little bit about Spider-Man, which is probably the most popular game now. I mean, everyone seems to be playing it and enjoying it, and it's got rave reviews and it's critically acclaimed at this point. And I can tell you myself, it's a lot of fun. I was trying to get the game done yesterday, but I just kept going off doing extra things in the city, and I was just doing all these side missions and stuff. But I am getting close to the end of the game, and I'm really enjoying it. And there is something that's kind of missing from the game now that I noticed that God of War added in later, which is a New Game Plus, and it looks like the Spider-Man developers Insomniac are actually working on a New Game Plus now. They're actually polishing it up, which means we might see it sooner than later. This is actually in a series of tweets, as you're seeing here, where when asked about a New Game Plus feature, Insomniac Games says, yes, working on it now and polishing it up. So that is going to be really cool. I guess when you finish the game, you can go back through the game, and who knows if they'll add some extra things in there, maybe some extra suits to collect from beating the game again, and maybe you get to keep all of your skills and extra stuff when you go back through it, so you'll be pretty strong for the beginning of the game and then you work through. But it could be really neat to see how they implement that. And hey, more content for Spider-Man, and I assume the New Game Plus would be a free thing to download, right? Since they already are selling DLC, but I have to give them credit. The game itself has been absolutely fantastic as it is now, and adding extra feature like that for free, like what's happened with God of War, would be very welcomed. And in our last bit of news, let's talk a little bit about Sega Ages, as we do have, of course, Tokyo Game Show, or TGS, coming up. It looks like we're going to get some new announcements, and they call them major game announcements for Sega Ages, which is of course kind of Sega's virtual console essentially on the Nintendo Switch, where they're releasing games like Phantasy Star, the older Phantasy Star, Sonic, Thunder Force, things like that. And if you look at kind of their schedule for TGS, you'll actually see an excerpt here where it does read that a Sega Ages development team discussion with the mysterious retro game-loving artist MC8-Bit as a guest, major title-related announcements are planned. That's going to be September 22nd from 3:10 to 3:40 Japanese time. So this is going to be really cool to see, and I really hope that the major announcements are things further into Sega's, I guess, game console history. So rather than like Sega Genesis or I guess Mega Drive, stuff like that, maybe they announce something like a Crazy Taxi from the Dreamcast, or maybe they grab Panzer Dragoon from the Saturn. Maybe they grab just something from either of those systems. I would like to see a Dreamcast game. That'd be really cool to see if they say, oh yeah, Jet Grind Radio, or well, we had a Jet Grind Radio here in the US. Yeah, that's now available for you to download as a Sega Ages game. I just want to see that door open because we heard them talk about it previously, and as soon as they announce any type of Saturn, Sega Saturn would be very impressive, by the way, with how the emulation is for that. But as soon as they announce a Saturn or a Dreamcast game for Sega Ages, something a bit more advanced, we'll pretty much know that the door is open. You know, at that point, we can just start getting all of these games on there from all different generations. And man, the Dreamcast has some gems. They start dropping like Power Stone on there and stuff. Ooh, that'd be cool. We get Skies of Arcadia. It could open up big. So I'm really hoping that it is something from the Dreamcast or Saturn. Maybe not even like a game that I would want to really play like crazy. Just the idea of it coming over to Sega Ages would just open the door massively. And I'm sure you guys come up with a ton of games in the comments that you would like to see in Sega Ages from those systems. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave today. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's EA and them fighting the loot box gambling. It's it's crazy to me because I think it's more of a fight than it's worth at this point for them, considering I know they make a ton of money in places like the UK and other parts of Europe and everything. And then, of course, they make a lot of money in the US, and they're right now fighting against the Belgium Gaming Commission. It seems odd, but let me know what you think about that down below. And then what about Sega Ages? What would you like to see announced for the Switch with things like Dreamcast and Saturn up in the air? It's exciting. TGS is coming up quick, and I'm looking forward to some of the announcements. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.